God say, yeah. If you would, stand to your feet, lift to your feet. One more time, I'm going to be reading out the book of Judges, chapter 6. Amen. Judges, chapter 6. I'm going to begin reading at verse 12 to verse 16. A few more scriptures than I normally read on a Sunday morning, but you can hang. Y'all can hang, can't y'all? I'm going to be reading out an NIV translation of the Bible, and it reads this way. Judges, chapter 6, beginning at verse 12. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." The King James Version says, "Thou mighty man of valor." "Pardon me, my Lord," Gideon replied, "but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us?" What's that about? Where are all the wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, "Did not the Lord bring us out of Egypt?" But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian. And the Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength that you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you?" Gideon says, "You child, please." Yeah, that's basically what he said. "Pardon me, my Lord." Gideon replied, "How can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." And the Lord answered, "I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none of them alive." You're going to clean your plate. Ain't nothing going to be left. Amen? And I want to use a simple subject this morning. If you would bear with me for a few moments. I want to use the subject, I didn't know I had it in me. Look at somebody and say, "Neighbor, you may not know this, but you got it in you." Give God a praise, why don't you? I didn't know it. I didn't know it. Father, bless your word in Jesus' name. Amen. Let me begin by saying this, that most people are more gifted than they give themselves credit for. That most people have more talent than they actually use, and they have more intellect than they tap into. That the truth be told, we are powerful beyond our imagination, and we are more capable than we think. We just don't realize it yet. It is this truth that inspired one poet in the 70s to write this, that we are the ones that we have been waiting for. That for many people, you are waiting around for the Calvary, you're waiting for a Superman figure to come in and fix your situation, but sometimes the hero that you are looking for is in the mirror staring right at you. That the answers that you are seeking out there are actually in here. That there is something that God has already put down inside of you that is capable of standing up and addressing whatever it is that you are facing at this moment. What am I saying? I'm saying that God has placed within each one of us a treasure trove of untapped potential, like jewels hidden deep in the earth, that typically go unnoticed until an occasion or an opportunity comes along that unearths it. That it is resident potential down in each of us, and that typically nobody notices, nobody pays attention, and you may not even be aware of it until something happens, something occurs, some situation that causes you and I to rise to the occasion. It is only then that we discover, look at this, that we are enough. For somebody right now who's facing something or in a situation and you're wondering if you are enough, it is life that unearths what you really have and teaches you through your responses that you are enough. It is only in those moments that we discover that we are capable. It's in those moments that we discover we do possess the ability to answer life's greatest challenges. It is in those moments that we discover that everything you need to be successful has already been deposited in you. That before you were born, that God has already hidden things deep within you that you may or may not have realized. And when you are questioning whether you're capable or whether you have the ability or the intellect or the power, God will create situations that draw out of you what he has already deposited in you. That before you were created, God hid it down in you like diamonds in the earth, like gold in the earth. And now your job is to unearth and discover what God has already put down in you. That the strength, the courage, and the wisdom has already been inside of you. Get this, Charlene, all along. That what you're seeking for, you already possess. It's already been deposited down in you. And it was there all along. Look at somebody and say, it was there all along. I didn't know it, I didn't realize it, but it was there all the time. Such was the case with Gideon. And when we are first introduced to Gideon, he is not a hero by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, he's a very weak, very timid, very insecure man with little or no self-confidence. He's like the rest of Israel. He's just trying to make the best of a bad situation. Instead of pressing wine in the open field like they normally do, we find him hiding out in a threshing floor because he did not want to be noticed by his enemies. That he had been oppressed so long, he began to accept the situation. That he had learned to live under the oppressive rule for 7 years, and by now he has accepted it and accepted his own limitations. And then that mimics some of us, that when life begins to press on you and things really begin to challenge you, that most people, instead of standing up and rising up to the occasion, we cower back into some comfortable corner, hoping that this too will pass, that this situation will go away. And when things haven't changed in a little while, we begin to accept things the way they are. Here is our attitude. It is what it is. It basically says that this is the best it's going to be. This is the most I can expect, that I don't have any reason to think it's going to be anything different. Gideon is like some of us. He's a man who has lowered his expectations. And it is a damnable thing to lower your expectations. And how many know what I'm talking about, where you came into something with high expectations for this marriage or this business or this job or this opportunity, but after a while, things begin to happen, things begin to occur, and you suddenly have to adjust your expectations and realize, I may not get married as quickly as I thought. The business may not take off as quickly as I thought. That this opportunity may not be as easy as I thought. And what most people do is we adjust our expectations to manage our disappointment. Because if I keep my expectations high, but my results are low, I move into depression, because my question is, how long is this going to take? What do I have to get there? It's been 3 months. It's been 6 months. It's been 7 years, and I'm still waiting for God to do something. Anybody know what I'm talking about? I'm typically good for a day or two, but I'm talking about somebody who's going through something for years. See, some of y'all don't know what I mean, because y'all backslide. You go through something for 2 days. For 2 days, oh God, it's been 2 days. But I'm talking about somebody in here who's been dealing with an issue for years. You've been dealing with a crisis for years. You've been a caretaker for somebody for years. You've been somebody who's dealing with marital issues for years. I'm not talking about a little 6-month issue. I'm not talking about a 3-month issue. I'm talking about something that's been ongoing, going on and on and on. Yes, you walked in. Yes, you're smiling. Yes, you've adjusted. You figured out how to make it even though your situation is oppressive, and this has happened for years. That time is typically the test that most people lose the battle. That most people, it's not the intensity of the battle, it is the time. If it hadn't lasted so long, I would have been okay. If this was a month, I would have been good. If this had been 2 months, I would have been good. But Lord, what am I supposed to do with an oppressive situation that has lasted for years? My money has been funny for years. I've been dealing with loneliness and depression for years. I've been struggling with finances for years. I've been trying to go after things that I want, and nothing seems to happen for years. I don't know who I'm talking to in here, but I'm talking to somebody who's been dealing with an issue for a long time. You've been dealing with something so long that you begin to wonder yourself if you can even stand up under the pressure. That temptation becomes more difficult when you've had to do without for a long time. Oh, y'all not going to talk to me this morning. There are people in this room right now who are dealing with issues that they cannot talk about because they've been dealing with it for years. And when you've been doing something for years, it almost becomes normal, where you normalize it. Some of you are dealing with people that you normalize their behavior. That's just Johnny. That's just how they do. You've given up on, you've done all the prayers you can pray, you've all the prayer meetings you can have, you've had all the conversations you could have, but they still showing out, still carrying on. It's where you get to a situation where you stop arguing about it, because this ain't gonna change. She gonna always be this way, he's gonna always be this way. That's just marriage. She's just crazy like that. She been like that ever since I known her. She was like that in my last church. She was like that in high school. It's just not gonna change. And so when you get that way, you start lowering your expectations. You start lowering your expectations in order to deal with the pain. And us lowering our expectations, listen, it's a learned behavior. It's a system of survival. It's a way of coping. I realize that this is what it is. It's not going to change. So rather than change it, I got to change me. That I find a way to live with it. And living with it is damaging me. Is there anybody in here who's had to adjust your behavior so much that helping you is hurting me? Who's tried to help a friend so long that helping them is hurting you? That you've bent as much as you can bend, you've taken down as much as you can take, you've compromised as much as you can, and now you're at the point where helping you is now hurting me. And so the coping mechanism that I've chosen was at one time a Band-Aid or a pill to deaden the pain has now become worse than the pain itself. That many people who are trapped in addictions didn't start out that way. They were taking something to cope with the pain. Whether it was marijuana, whether it was drugs, whether it was alcohol, whether it was sex, you were taking it to cope with the pain, and now the thing you use to cope with the pain is worse than the problem itself. I ain't getting no amens in here. That there are many people who are addicted to some kind of recreational drug that when they first did it, they was trying to get through high school. They were just trying to get through tests. They were just trying to find a way to escape for a moment. And then they reached a place in their life where the thing that they used to cope becomes the thing that controls them. And when you talk to them, they'll say, I got it. I got it. I got it under control. But the truth is, you don't have it. It has you. I want to talk to somebody here who is dealing with an addiction. Maybe your addiction is not to drugs or to alcohol or anything like that, but you have an addiction to negativity. You have an addiction to get to revenge. You're the kind of person that can't take it. You got to get back. You have an addiction to hatred. This is how you cope. You have an addiction to bad behavior. This is your fallback. This is the thing you fall into. Everybody's got a fallback. Everybody's got a thing that they go into. You're fine as long as the issues don't persist. But when pressure gets on you, you go back to being that dude. Oh yeah. You go back to being that chick. Now you're the vice president of the company, but you now done pulled your earrings off and you're back to being that. Y'all, you see, I can't stand y'all sometimes. Y'all so phony. Yeah, you come with your tie on, you're all dressed up, but if somebody push you hard enough, you'll go back into being that person. Yeah, she in there. All you need is enough pressure, and you'll revert back to backslide into being fast Mary and crazy Bob. I know you're a deacon now, but if enough pressure come on you, you'll turn into a whole nother person. See, my issue is not your intensity. My issue with the saints is your consistency. That typically we have intensity, and typically we have commitment, but what we don't have is consistency. Because under pressure, that person comes out. See, I'm trying to go on, but see, everybody in here has got an evil twin. Amen. Know what I'm talking about? Everybody, Connie, has an evil twin. It's the person we see and the person we don't see. I know the girl I see. It's the girl I don't see that I'm concerned about. Yeah. She's Charlene today, but she's Broomhilda tomorrow. I'm not picking on you, Charlene. I'm just saying everybody's got an evil twin. Look at somebody and say, you got one too. Don't front on me. Don't act like it's just me. Don't act like it depends on when you catch me. Everybody's got oh Lord, let me move on. And to be honest, we're all just trying to cope. Trying to manage, trying to get through it, trying not to let it take me down. See, my elevator only goes down so far when it comes to depression. By the time you get down to the second and the first floor, I'm going down as far as I can go. I'm just trying to cope. And many people will criticize you for your particular thing you use to cope, not realizing how difficult it is for you to get through it. Yeah. And so what we do is we tend to judge people for what they use to cope while we excuse the things we use to cope. Am I talking this morning? Am I talking to anybody this morning? And so you'll have somebody who has a drug addiction going off on somebody who has an alcohol addiction. Judging somebody who is a homosexual while you're sleeping with everybody you can get your hands on. I'm going to leave it alone. But I'm just saying, you're coping, I'm coping, we're coping. And we all just kind of find a way to make it through. Because after all, at the end of the day, we just want to make it through. And all that worked well, Charlene, until an angel appeared to him. And what the angel did was he challenged him by calling him something that nobody had ever called him. He called him a mighty warrior, a mighty man of valor. Here is a weak, timid, frail man who is suddenly being called something that nobody had ever called him before. Nobody ever said that to him before. But God saw something in him that he didn't even see in himself. And so what he did was he sent an angel to call it out. I come here as your angel today to call somebody out. That the enemy has been telling you lies about yourself. The devil's been feeding you information about yourself, and you've just been eating it up. And God has sent me as a messenger to call you out. If you came this Sunday or you're watching this Sunday, this is your Sunday, and I stand as your representative to call you out. You are not what you're into. You are not where you've been. You are not what they call you, but God sent me to tell you to come out of it. I come today to call you out of your attitude, to call you out of your issues. You're bigger than that. You're more important than that. You got more going for you than that. How many people know it's like every once in a while that God has to remind you who you are? That sometimes you could be acting out and God has to remind you, now wait a minute, you the pastor, you can't go there. Oh, see, y'all not. You a deacon, you a mother. You can't go there. But every once in a while, someone try to call you out. God said, I'm calling you out to remind you who you are. And the angel appeared to him and called him something that nobody had ever called him all his life. Thank God for the angels that God has sent in my life at various times who saw something in me, Charlene, that I didn't. That sometimes people see something in you that you can't see yourself. That you need sometimes messengers to come along and remind you who you are and how great you are. That you need somebody to see past what you even see. That sometimes you possess something, you have something, you carry something, but you need somebody every once in a while to tell you what they see. In Gideon's mind, he was disqualified because he was from the smallest tribe. He was from the smallest tribe, from the smallest family, and he was the youngest person. For all these reasons, he felt like he was disqualified. He was the least likely to succeed in his family. It's not like he was the best, the smartest, the sharpest. It's not like his family had a reputation. It's not like his tribe was one of the strongest tribes. He was way over in the corner somewhere, being a part of something that other people overlooked. And here was God talking to him and calling him something that he was not yet. And that's how God is. God has a tendency to call the things that are not as though they were. With God, it's not a suggestion, it is a declaration that when I called you blessed, when I called you healed, when I called you victorious, when I called you delivered, that was a declaration. And it doesn't matter if you don't feel it yet. I'm already talking to your future. I'm telling somebody in here that I am talking to your future. I'm not talking to who you've been. I'm not talking about what you've done. I'm talking about who you are. If God had declared something over you, who am I talking to in here this morning? That God has spoken a word over you and it's true, even if you don't feel it. I am what God said that I am. Though you turned your back, though you walked away, though you were sometime you're in it, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you want to say Hosanna, sometimes you want to crucify him. Do you not know that Jesus didn't change his mind? It never changed who he was. But he was from the smallest families where he felt like, no, God, you can't be talking to me. I don't have the background, the education, the upbringing, the pedigree, the degree to be doing what I'm doing. Environment has a huge bearing on your personal and professional development. Do you know that? If you show me your circle of friends, if you show me the people that you choose to associate with, your tribe and the people that get this, the people you are most comfortable with, I'll tell you who you really are. That if I, without even knowing you, if I just see the people that you are the most comfortable with, I gotta break it down. The people that you can let your hair down with. I know who you present yourself in here to be. But if I see the people that you can really be you with, it'll tell me who you really are and not just who you pretend to be. Because environment is important. That sometimes what's impacting some of us is that you are surrounded by people who either don't recognize or don't appreciate the greatness that you are. And the thing that's keeping you from being more than you could be is the circle you surround yourself with. These people either don't see it, don't recognize it, or they do see it, but they don't appreciate it, or even worse, they see it and they're intimidated by it. Anybody got any haters in here? Anybody trying to play down your gift and play down your abilities and play down your talents, not because you don't have it, but because they recognize it. And so they feel like by tearing you down, it brings them up. That the more I point out your issues, your faults, your flaws, that if I bring you down a few pegs, that somehow it keeps me in a better position, that somehow taking you down, that it's going to elevate me, and they become intimidated by who you are. Sometimes they peeped into your future, and they won't tell you how talented you are lest you surpass them. I won't tell you that you make a great leader, because if I tell you that, then you're going to move into something. You know what it is? It's an indictment against you. Whenever people are jealous of you, it's an indictment against them. You could do the same. You could go further too, but rather than invest your energy in becoming the best version of yourself that you could be, you spend your time trying to tear somebody else down. Oh, I'm talking this morning. I'm talking this morning. Somebody here right now is dealing with somebody on your job or in your family or in your neighborhood that rather than try to push you, they try to keep you down. They steal your ideas. They play down your accomplishments. They play down your commitment. They play down your education. They play down what you bring to the room. But I'm trying to tell somebody, don't dim your light just because somebody's eyes can't take it. Oh, I got to get out of here. Don't dim your light just because they can't take it. Tell them to put some shades on, baby. Protect your eyes. I'm going to shine if you don't like it. I'm going to shine if you talk about me. I'm going to shine if you walk out on me. I'm going to shine while you're back in the corner whispering about me. I'm going to show up with my wonderful self and be all that God has called me to be. If that's you, would you give God 30 seconds of praise? If you plan on shine, baby, shine. Sit down, sit down. I'm not done talking to you. Now listen, granted, Gideon didn't come from the best environment. I want to talk to somebody in here who is deeply aware that you did not come from the best environment. Maybe you didn't come from a strong family. Maybe you didn't come from a family that put family values in you. Maybe you're somebody who you did not start from the front. You had to start from behind. Maybe you don't have the best tools. Yeah, I don't have the gifts that other people have. And he wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer, but bless God, God chose him. Where are my chosen people in here? That when you compare what you started with versus what they started with, you would think that I can't do what they do, but God chose you. God is notorious for choosing people who are weaker in stature, weaker in faith, weaker in morale, weaker in intelligence, weaker in everything. Why in the world does God pick people who are weaker? My Bible tells me in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 26, for you see your calling, brethren, how that not many wise according to the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble are called. That's your calling. But God hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. And God has chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things that are mighty. And base things of the world and things which are despised God has chosen. Yea, the things that are not, to bring to nothing the things that are. Get this, verse 29, that no flesh should glory in his presence. In a simple answer, God chose you because he knew he would get the glory out of your life. Y'all not gonna talk to me. That there are too many people in church who are glory stealers. That every time God does something through them, you make the mistake of bringing all attention to you. But I want somebody in here who knows that if it had not been for God, you wouldn't even be who you are. You wouldn't have the job you have. You wouldn't be able to live where you live. And you just want to take 30 seconds and interrupt the service and give God a praise because let me talk on this side of the room. I want somebody over here who is convinced that the only reason you are where you are is because God is who he is, to give God 30 seconds of your best praise. God said, I wanted you to be weak. I wanted you to be overlooked. I wanted you to be at a deficit so that when I showed up, I would get the glory. That I use your weakness as a canvas for me to paint my glory on. That if you had had all the things that you wanted, the education and all the intellect and the ability, you would step back and say, I did it myself. But God said, I wanted you to be the weakest. I want you to be the most uneducated. I want you to be the ugliest. I want you to be the craziest so that when I got a hold of you, somebody could say, there must be a God somewhere. Is there anybody who can look at your life and say, I am living proof that there is a God somewhere? Why y'all sitting on this? I'm living proof that there is a God somewhere. If he'll save me with my crazy self, if he'll save me with my retarded self, if he'll save me with my hard-headed self and use me, you know there must be a God somewhere. I won't even... Find you about 3 people and say there must be a God somewhere. I am a testimony. I am proof. You ain't got to know me. You ain't got to know my story. Just trust me. Just know that if you see me in church today, there must be a God somewhere. If you see me sober in my right mind, there must be a God somewhere. If you see me walking in and I don't have on an ankle bracelet, there must be a God somewhere. If you see me coming in here and I'm not having red eyes and have a stupor, there must be a God somewhere. If you are living proof that there is a God somewhere, give God a shout in this house. God transforms, picks up crumbs and trash and foolery to amaze those who are impressed with themselves so that he gets all the glory. You glory stealer, give it back. Give it back. Give it back. You wouldn't even have the job if God didn't bless you. Give it back. And so every once in a while, God has to view through things to adjust our attitude and our expectations. So write this down in the next few minutes we have. Number one, I want to talk to you about divine interruptions. Divine interruptions are those times when God breaks through and disrupts your whole chain of thought. Ever had that happen to you? You were going in one direction, you were believing one thing, and suddenly you feel a pull into something that was in greater alignment with his will for your life. That God takes the wheel of your car. That you could have your mind set on a certain person or a certain place or a certain direction, and God just yanks the wheel. Have you ever had God yank the wheel? Have you ever had God interrupt your thoughts? You was on a whole nother chain of thought and God just broke in. And now got you thinking about something that wasn't even on your mind. Pulled you into something that you didn't even have a desire for. I didn't even want it. I didn't have an appetite for it. I was disinterested. And suddenly God begins to pull me. I have an attraction to certain things that I didn't want before. I know it's got to be him because it's not me. I'm not even that dude. I'm not even wired that way. And suddenly I'm being pulled into a life of service that I wasn't even. Is there anybody know what I'm talking about? To be pulled. That's what it's like to be called, Adrian. It's a pull. It's a tug. It's a snatching. I was going in this direction, Lee, and he snatched me. Is there anybody here that God has snatched? Woo! snatch your whole mind, interrupt your whole chain of thought, and suddenly I'm thinking things that I didn't think before. You have to have, here's what it is. He pulls you into alignment with his will. And to do that, you have what they call cognitive flexibility. Yeah. Cognitive flexibility is your brain's ability to adapt to new and changing information. It's your mind's ability to change depending on what's required of you now. The better you are at doing it, the more successful you are in life. And we all know people who have what they call tunnel vision. We all know those people. They have tunnel vision. They got one way of seeing things, one way of doing things. They tend to be very narrow, very limited, very myopic in the way they see things. This is the way it is. That's what I think. And these people have a tendency, Charlotte, to become very rigid. They don't see outside of the periphery. They only see one way of doing it. This is what it is. They don't change. And these people tend to be very narrow. They have a hard time, Taco, seeing the big picture. It's hard to work with narrow-minded people. It's hard to work with prejudiced people. Because although they might be intense, they are intensely wrong. They are sincere, but they are sincerely wrong. And it's difficult to work with people who only see one way of doing it, who cannot see outside, who do not have the flexibility. They're too rigid. They're too narrow. They're like a tree that won't bend. They will break. They will snap. Because in life, you have to be limber. You have to be nimble. You have to be fluid. You have to be able to change depending on the situation. It's like somebody at a dance. If the music change, you got to change the beat. You act like y'all ain't never danced before. Anybody been to a house party? Sometimes the music is real fast, and then it slow down, and you still trying to dance fast when the tempo has changed, and you look stupid. We ain't doing that now. You're out there doing a robot, and now we doing a slow drag. You're wrong. I'm dating myself now, see? The beat, the rhythm, the tempo has changed. And because you're stuck, I come to talk to somebody right now who's stuck. You are stuck in a rut. You are stuck in a rhythm. You are stuck in a groove. You are stuck in one way of doing things and wonder why God can't bless you. Because maybe God's not trying to bless you over here, but he's trying to bless you over here. And you got to be flexible enough to say, God, what do you want right now? The people who get the most out of their walk with God are the people who respect him enough to say, God, what do you want now? I know what you wanted yesterday, but what do you want today? I know what you wanted last week, but what do you want me to do now? And then you have to be flexible enough to say, God, I'll change my mind. I'll change my whole attitude. I will change my circle of friends. I will change what I was going to do. I will adjust my agenda. I will move my itinerary because the safest place to be is in the will of God. How many people want to be in the center of God's? If I got to change my circle of friends, if I got to delete some people, if I got to change my behavior, if I got to do something different, I just want to be in God's will. If that's you, would you give God praise and say, Lord, I'm almost done. Myopic people are seldom used by God. But people with cognitive flexibility, they have fluidity of thought and fluidity of action. Fluidity of thoughts. Their thoughts are fluid. They're not so rigid as to say this is the only way it can be done. They are open to possibilities, that there is more than one way to skin a cat. That there may be more than one way to deal with this situation or this person or situation. And when God can find somebody who's nimble enough and cognitive flexibility enough to do that, then suddenly the people that were thinking that something is impossible start to believe that all things are possible. Come on, somebody. My mind was stuck. I was depressed. I was worried. I was frustrated because I was thinking that God could only do it one way. And suddenly I realized, because my mind was flexible enough, that God can do a number of things. I went from being it's impossible to suddenly all things are possible. We look at somebody and say all things are possible. That I need this cognitive flexibility to help me to let go of where I was so that I can embrace who I'm becoming. I want to talk to somebody right now who is becoming. That if you are flexible enough and you are nimble enough and you are pliable, there it is. If you are pliable enough, God can begin to develop you into the woman, into the man that you are going to be, and not be stuck in who you used to be. That as you run towards your destiny, you will get away from your history. That what you see, Charlie, is an evolved person because I was flexible enough for God to work with my mind, to change how I think, to change my dress, my tenor, my style, my presentation. And if I was stuck in who I was, I would never be able to embrace who I'm trying to be. Is there anybody know that you are becoming? I'm not there yet, but I'm becoming. I don't have it all down yet, Hannah, but I'm becoming. Don't get mad at me because I'm in the process. Some people judge you in the middle of your process, and they always judge you where you are because they don't know where you've been. If you knew where I came from, you would praise God for where I'm not what I used to be, even though I'm not who I'm supposed to be. But I'm so glad that, oh my God, who am I talking to in here? I'm becoming. Don't judge my book too soon. You're only halfway through the book. You got to walk with me for a while. You got to keep on going to see what the end's going to be. Get away from me, people that judge me on my first chapter or my second chapter. This is only chapter 5. You got about 8 more chapters to go. You got to keep on reading the book. You don't know me like that. How many know you're a work in progress? I'm a work in progress. Don't let people make you feel bad about being a work in progress. See, you got to take a moment, right? I got to stop right here. Because when I think about where God brought me from, I still got goals. I still got dreams. I still got things I want to do. But when I look back, I got to take a moment and say, Lord, I thank you for how far you brought me. Somebody that's thankful right now for where God has brought you from. Will you interrupt the service, take over the room, and thank him for what he's already done? If he don't do nothing else, Tina, I'm going to thank him for what he's already done. I'm going to thank him for the things he brought me through, for the things he brought me over, for the traps I got out of, for the stuff that was set up to kill me, and I'm still here. Would you give God 30 seconds of a crazy praise if you're glad you're still here? Oh, my God, I got to go. Slap about 3 people and say, I'm still here. They thought it was going to kill me, but I'm still here. They thought I was going to die, but I'm still here. They said I wasn't going to make it, but I'm still here. I'm still here. Charlene, I'm letting go of who I used to be so I can embrace who I'm going to be. Is there anybody that's excited about your future? When I look at you this morning, I'm excited about your future. I didn't ask you where you've been or what you've been into or what you came out of because I'm too focused on your future. If you're focused on your future, give God a shout right here, my future. Let's talk about divine interactions. What divine interactions? Number 2. There's something about our nature, Sister Tina, that accepts negative information much easier than positive affirmation. Yeah, it's something about our makeup, our nature as human beings. That you ever notice that somebody can give you a compliment and that won't stick. But if somebody says something bad about you, that'll stick and stay all day. Isn't that funny? That somebody, you can have 100 positive interactions with the person, but people only remember the few times that were negative. Isn't that something? That you can do 1,000 thoughtful things for somebody, your spouse, your friend, or whatever, and they will always be stuck on the one time or the few times that you were wrong. Isn't that funny about us? Isn't that funny about us? That I can bombard you with gifts and compliments and talents and abilities and kudos and all that. And you won't remember all the 1,000 things I did right. You'll only remember the one thing that I did wrong. It's something about us that we can't take compliments. They rub off us like a water off a duck. But those negative things will stick to us like glue. The word that we receive, that's because the word that we receive oftentimes is filtered through our experiences. That sometimes, even when God is speaking to you, that what is being said to you, though it might be positive, it might be affirming. We're talking about getting your t-shirts with your affirmations on them so you can have a constant affirmation when you look in the mirror, because we constantly need that affirmation. There are so many things that are said to us that damage our spirit and wound our hearts, and we're so susceptible to it. We wear it like a coat. It sticks to us like glue. So we have these affirmations that we give each other. We have these affirmations that we give ourselves because we constantly need that information. And one of the things I found out, Charlene, is that when you're saying something to somebody, it's filtered through the filter of their experiences. It's not always what's being said, it's how they view it. It's how they receive it. That they receive it through all the things that they've come through. And no matter how positive it may be and how encouraging it may be, that sometimes when they throw it out there and you're preaching to somebody, you're trying to encourage and inspire and motivate them, that you have to realize everybody has filters. Everybody has experiences. And so what I'm saying has to go through your filter before it gets to you and has an impact on your life. That's why Gideon said, if God is with us, why has this happened to us? You were looking at a man who was getting a word through the filter of his experiences. His experience with God was abandonment. He said, Lord, why have you abandoned us? So what you hear Gideon speaking, it almost sounds disrespectful because the angel's trying to tell him you're a mighty man of God, you're going to do great things. And he's like, yeah, whatever. Whatever. If God is with us, you know how we do. If God is with us, then why would this have happened? It was almost disrespectful, even the way he even approached the angel. But what you hear is his abandonment issues, his anger, his frustrations. And sometimes when you see people coming out, they come out is caused by trauma in their history. So when you see people responding, it's not even you. It's not even the situation. They're responding out of the trauma of their experiences. That everybody got triggers. Everybody got triggers. Things that have caused you pain, things that have caused you heartache, and those things sometimes are not healed, they're just hidden until something hits it and that trigger, and you have this triggered response to something that has nothing to do with the person that you're talking to. The only problem is that we all have triggers, and by the time your trigger run into my trigger, then it becomes a contest to see who can go the most off. Come on, my married people. Y'all know what I'm saying. The challenging thing about being married is that you're married with somebody who got triggers too. And by the time my trigger hits your trigger, we got drama in the house because I'm living with somebody who is filtering new information through the filter of their experiences. Am I helping anybody in here this morning? But here's what I like, Lee. The angel didn't even address it. While he was going off and getting mad and being disrespectful, the angel didn't address his questions. He just kept calling him a mighty man of valor. He just kept telling him who he was. I'm trying to tell somebody in here that while you're angry with God about why this happened and why that happened, God is not even responding. He keeps telling you who you are. That sometimes you got to just keep reminding people who you are. I know this happened to you, but you're still a great woman. You're still a great man. You're still God starts talking to who you will be. He starts talking to who you are. He starts talking about where you're going. He's not even addressing what happened in your past. Some people get stuck in their past. You were 30 years old now. It happened when you were 5 years old. Why are you still responding to something that happened to you before you even got in grade school? And you're stuck in something that you could have been free from. But I'm so glad that God began to speak to who I am and not just what I've been through. Am I talking to anybody in here? I'm trying to tell somebody that God is trying to speak to your future and not to your past. We have to receive the word. It's not just enough to be in church and shout. You got to receive the word. When I see people, a lot of times, they don't change because they don't really receive the word, Adrian. They shouted, they danced, but they didn't receive the word. James talked about how we have to receive the engrafted word that is able to change our souls. The word engrafted means the word that sticks to you. And so you can have somebody who's been in church all your life since you was a little kid, but the word didn't stick to you. And so it did not change you because it didn't stick to you. It's not the word you heard that changes you. It's the word that sticks to you. Oh, who am I talking to? It's the word that sticks to you. People talk about, I've been in church all my life. I've been in church since I was a little kid. I've been in church since I was a knee-high to a grasshopper. Yeah, you've been in church, but church ain't been in you. Let me get off it. Let me go. And so you could say, you know all the songs, you know all the scriptures, you know what they're going to say, but it has not changed you. It's only the word that sticks to you. When you're in a house like this, who I take the time at this minister and preach and teach, it doesn't matter how much you hear, it matters how much sticks to you. It is the engrafted word that is able to change your life. Let this word stick. Don't just shout about it. Don't just dance about it. Let it stick. Don't just shout about it and dance all over the church and break your heel. Let it stick. If it don't stick, it won't make a difference. We are changed by the word. We are transformed by the word. But if you just shout off the word and don't let it change you, your life will still be dismal. Look at somebody and say, let it stick. Let it stick. I know it ain't sticking because some of y'all can't remember the title from the message last week. It ain't sticking. Oh, we shouted. Oh, Lee hit that organ. Oh, the praise team sung. But what did I say? We should start doing a test for folks. Just give them a test after church and find out what stuck. You'd be surprised. This is why it's difficult. I'm not saying things to you that are online that are watching, but this is why it's difficult, even in the age of Zoom and internet service. It's difficult because we have so many distractions while watching it online. And so when we listen to somebody preach, we very seldom listen to a whole message, Taco. We get bits and pieces in between me cooking and, I'm cleaning up and hollering at the kids and fussing at somebody. And it's hard to get a full sentence. So what you get are bits and parts and bits and parts and pieces of a message. You don't get a whole congruent thought because you're managing distractions. And it is a distraction. Even in a room like this, somebody turned off about 5 minutes into the message. Put their head down. They're on the phone right now, checking out Facebook. And you don't even get the full impact of the message because you're distracted. That the greatest thing we have to manage, Lee, is our distractions. If you can manage your distractions, you can receive what God wants you to do. And the enemy is good at it because if I keep you distracted, Connie, you won't receive. But you got to receive. Oh, my God. Look at somebody and say, you got to receive this word. You can't let nobody write notes to you and be on your phone and calling people and checking out somebody's shoes. Listen, when I come to church, I am trying to manage distraction. Talk to me later. Don't talk to me right now. Don't point nothing out to me right now. No. I got to get what I need because I got to fight a devil tomorrow. I got to fight an issue this week, and God has given me something to fight with. He's putting bullets in my gun, so when I go back to work, I ain't going to slap nobody across the mouth or your said, you better let me get my word. Let me get my word, because I got to go home to a spouse that don't act right. Let me get my word, because I got to deal with these kids that don't be disrespectful. Let me get my word. If you let me get my word, I'll be a better husband. I'll be a better wife. I'll be a better mama. Leave me alone and let me get my word. Look at somebody and say, get your word now. Get your word. Get your word. Get your word. Don't be distracted. The music's too loud, and I can't hear the singer. Forget all that. I got to get my word. Number 3, and I'm done. I want to talk about inspiration, divine inspirations. The word inspiration simply means to breathe, to take in air. And there are many benefits to breathing in fresh air, including it cleans your lungs. Breathing in fresh air boosts your mood. It lowers your heart rate. Breathing in air increases your energy level. It improves your digestion. Breathing in just breathing in air does so much for you as a human being. Releasing toxins and negativity and breathing in fresh air. It's the same way spiritually. When we come to church and get in the presence of God, it's my chance to breathe in. The presence of God. I've been breathing all kind of negativity all week, from my job to my kids to my spouse to the bills to the election to the politics. I got to breathe in all this negativity through the news and through the media and through the internet. And when I get to church, I get to release all of that and breathe in the presence of God. Who am I talking to in here? Somebody lift your hands right here and begin to breathe and begin to worship God. When we worship God, I begin to breathe in the presence of God. When I get in God's presence, anything that was negative on me, I let it go. I'm trying to tell somebody that what's on you right now, you got to let it go. Your attitudes, your issues, your traumas, your past, the things that happened to you, what somebody said, I want you to breathe in the presence of God and release. Who am I talking to in here? It's time for you to release. If God did not develop in us the ability to breathe in fresh air and release poisons, you would die on the spot. You were not created to take in poison. You take in fresh air, your body uses it and appropriates it and releases the toxins. I want to talk to somebody in here who is very toxic. You are toxic in your behavior. It comes out in how you talk to people. It comes out in your behavior. It comes out in the things you respond to. It comes out in how you respond to. You are a highly toxic person. And you run around talking about how everybody else is toxic, and it never occurs to you that you may be the toxic one in the room. It might be you. You may be the negative character in this movie. But it never occurs to us that we might be. But God knows that he has to get the poison out of you. So when I come into God's presence, it's my opportunity to release everything that's been holding me down and everything that's been holding me back and everything that's been poured into me and every negative thing that's been said about me. In fact, I want to speak over somebody right now and release you from every negative word that's been spoken against you. Every negative thing that's been spoken against your destiny, against your future. I release you from what they said and he said and he said. I release you from the criticism from your mother, from your father, from your friends, from your sister. I release you from the criticism that your sister said about you when you was in 3rd grade. I release you from the criticism from your ex-husband who said you never be nothing. I release you from the criticism of the job that didn't appreciate you. I release you right now. There's a release in the room. You don't feel it? There's a release in the room. Everybody that feels a release, jump up on your feet and say, God, I release it. Your hands are heavy and your arms are tired because you've been carrying too much negativity. But I dare you to release it in the presence of God today. There is a release in the house. I can't get down to who you're supposed to be because I'm still dealing with who you used to be. But I dare you to release her. Release her. Release what happened back then. Release what they said. Release it in the presence of the Lord. Bible tells me that when the priest would enter into the holies of holies, that before they got to the holy place, that there was something called the laver that was in the court. And what they had to do was stop by the laver and take a bath before they could go into the presence of the Lord. You know why? Because somewhere between when you come in and the closer you get to God, you got to walk through mess. You got to walk through trash. You got to walk through foolery. And the reason some people can't get a breakthrough in the service is because you're carrying all that dirt and dust and trash and foolery with you. But while you're in God's presence, you got to take a bath. Before you talk about preaching, and before you talk about singing, and before you talk about serving, somebody needs to take a bath. Why? I got to bathe all this stuff out of my mind. I got to bathe all this foolishness out. I got to release what happened last night and yesterday and at work today. Everybody needs to release. Begin to release God right here. Release right here. If you're releasing anything, release it right here. I'm talking about releasing it right here. You've been carrying that attitude for years. When you gonna let that go? You've been carrying that anger for years. When you gonna let that go? You've been carrying that issue for years, and you're heavy, and you're falling down, but God is calling something out of you. Somebody shout, release, 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 release. Listen, as you breathe in the presence of God, there is literally an inflow of, get this, divine ideas, creative concepts, divine activity through you. Spiritual development, spiritual character is developed in you. But what you got to do is open up. The reason why we have a worship service before we get to the word is not to entertain you, but to prepare you. We do all that preliminary stuff to get you to the place that you're open, to prepare the ground, to get you ready so that the word can penetrate your heart. Because one word from God will change the entire movie. Lift your hands and say, Lord, I'm open. I'm open to instruction. I'm open to direction. I'm open to correction. I need divine. How many need some divine ideas? How many need God to speak to a situation? Somebody right now saying, Lord, I need you to speak to my money, speak to my marriage, speak to my kids, speak to my mind. I slept all night, but I didn't rest, and I need you, God, to speak to my situation. Lift your hands and say, Lord, I'm open, 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 I'm open. I'm open to you giving me divine ideas and creative concepts. I'm open to what God is doing. You can't be open staring at the ceiling. You can't be open looking at your phone. You can't be open and trying to figure out what somebody else is doing. You got to be open. I'm open. I'm open. I'm open. You can't receive while you're closed off. I'm open. God can't get it in if you can't let it go. I'm open. I'm open. I'm scared, but I'm open. I'm nervous, but I'm open. I'm not sure, but I'm open. I'm not sure if I'm capable, but I'm open. I'm going with my knees trembling, but I'm open. Some of you that God is calling, you're trying to wait till you get past your fears, in order to respond. And God said, I want you to respond where you are. To say yes from where you are. That you ain't got to know all the answers. I don't know how this is going to work out. But I'm going. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what's going to happen next week. But I'm open. I'm open to whatever you say. I'm open. My ear is open to whatever you say. And here you are with all your excuses. Here you are telling God what you don't have and where you came from and what you've done. And God said, I'm not studying none of that. I'm still calling you. You're a mighty man of valor. You're a mighty woman of valor. But God, you don't know about my mistakes. Yes, I do know about it, but I'm still calling you a mighty woman of valor. I'm still calling you a mighty man of valor. And what you got to do is give up on what you say and start taking in what he says. Who am I talking to in here? Lift your hands right here, begin to worship. Lift your hands right here, begin to worship. When you put your hands up, it's a sign of surrender. It says, Lord, I'm open. When the police arrest you and they say, put your hands up, it's a sign of surrender. There's no resistance here. There's no excuses here. I got to give it up because, Brother Moore, I didn't know it was in me. Here is a young man who started out scared and afraid and timid and worried, unqualified, who God used to take a handful of men and destroy a mighty oppressive army. Here is somebody who started out as a zero, and God made him into a hero, one of the most celebrated judges in the whole book. He didn't start out that way, but all he did was say, Lord, I'm open. When you first started talking to me, I swore you were talking to the wrong person. I swore you were talking to the wrong person. I swore you must have been talking to the guy behind me. Tina, I thought sure he was talking to somebody in the third row behind me. He couldn't have been talking to me. But I hear the Holy Ghost saying today, I'm talking to you. Directly to you. And if you surrender to me, I will show you what you don't see for yourself right now. I will show you who you really are. You've been letting people around you define who you are. They've been telling you who you are. And sometimes they've been manipulating you for their own benefit. Sometimes people are benefiting from your dysfunction. As long as you don't know who you are, they like you. As long as you don't know how smart you are, how gifted you are, how anointed you are, they like you. But I'm talking to somebody here right now, and I'm taking the scales off your eyes. I'm peeling back the lies of the devil. I'm peeling back the criticism of your critics. so that you can finally realize the woman, the man that God has called you to be. I'm not going to do an altar call, but right where you are, I want you to make that an altar. I need everybody stand to your feet right here. Everybody stand to your feet right here. Where you're standing right now is an altar. We've been trained in church to believe that this is an altar. And so we tell everybody to come to the altar. But the altar is simply a place of sacrifice. It's where you come and you offer up something. God, that something has to die. Something is going to have to die. And today, something is going to have to die in this room. Who you were is going to have to die in order to be who God has called you to be. There's a woman in here about to die. I know you don't like it. You're trying to negotiate it. You're trying to negotiate a deal with God, Connie. And here's the deal you're trying to strike. How can I still be me and still serve you at the same time? But Paul said, present yourself as a living sacrifice, holy, entirely, as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. I'm not going to call you out today. I'm not going to call you this morning and lay hands on you, because the Holy Ghost is laying hands on you right here. Somebody's wrestling right now with the decision. They can't wait for church to be over so I can go back to being who I really am. But that's because you don't know whose you really are. You are tricked into thinking that you are your own. Your life is not your own, but you were bought with a Christ. And today, God is calling it the bill. So right where you are, I want you to lift your hands, begin to worship. This is a private moment. This is a private moment. It is private. It is intimate. It is serious. You're hiding out in the crowd like Gideon hiding in the wine press. But God said, I found you. I know where you are. You can't trick me. You're hiding behind a TV screen. You're hiding behind a computer. You're hiding behind a title. You're hiding behind an instrument. But I see you. I see you. And I'm calling you out of it. Lift your hands, begin to worship right here. Lift your hands, begin to worship right here. This is a moment. Lift your hands right here, begin to worship. This is your moment. I want you to talk to God. I want you to talk to God in this moment. This moment right here is going to change the trajectory of the next 5 years of your life. I know you got issues. I know you've been dropped before. I know you feel abandoned. I know it's hard for you to trust. Listen, I know you've been in church so long that you've seen enough foolery that you don't believe in nobody. Ain't nobody nothing according to you. Everybody going to hell in a handbasket. Ain't nobody saved, and ain't nobody going to see Jesus according to you. And everything to you is like performance. It's a show. It's just something we do. But I'm going to challenge you in this moment. I got about 20 seconds left. I'm going to challenge you in this moment to lift your hands and begin to worship and talk to God for yourself. And if you make a step toward God, God will make a step towards you. You haven't begun to see who you really are. You haven't begun to scratch the surface of how powerful you are and how called you are. You don't even know. Lift your hands. I'm healing. I feel the presence of the Lord. Come on, band. Take me there. If you're going to sing something, sing something. There's a presence in this place. Lift your hands and talk to the Master. Come on. Come on. Put your religion aside. Put your face aside and begin to worship, Lord. Inspire me. Inspire me. Breathe in me. I feel a fresh wind from the Holy Ghost. relationship. There's a wind blowing on your marriage. There's a wind blowing on your business. There's a wind blowing. You've been tired for a long time. You've been tired for a long time. Hallelujah. I need this. I need this. I took a vacation, but I still didn't get it. I took a couple days off work, but I still didn't get it. I took a sabbatical from service, but I still didn't get it. Because you stopped doing the work, but you didn't do him. Come on here. Come on here. Come on here. Come on. That's what the Lord wants to hear you say. My heart is not my own. To you, to you, to you. Come on, this is personal. Open your mouth and say, my life is not my own. To you I belong. I'm going to give myself. You ain't got to drag me. You ain't got to pull me. I'm giving myself. To you I belong. Come on, lift your hand and tell it one more time. My life is not my own. I know what you're saying. You didn't know you had it in you. You didn't know you had it in you. You're stronger than you think you are. You're tougher than you think you are. You got more in you than you believe you do. You got stuff you ain't even touched yet. But if you surrender today, God will take everything that you thought was a liability and he'll change it into an asset. Give God praise all over this building if you know that's true. Give God praise if you know that's true. Give God praise if you know that's true. Yeah! 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 I give it up to you. Give it up to you. One more time. I'm going to give you one more time to tell him, my life is not my own. To you. I'm going to give myself. I'm going to give myself. Yeah! Life is not my own. Oh, you ain't talking to him today. What? Come on and talk to the master. I give myself to you. Come on, say it from your heart. Let it hear it from your lips. Life is not my own. Somebody's talking to the master right now. I belong. I give myself. I give myself. Clap your hands and give God praise. Listen, I want you to grab somebody's hand around you to your left and your right. Make connections all over this room.